Mohammed at the UN, Addition at the FDB. You know, you have people like, luckily now we have Dr. Okonjo-Iweala at the WTO. Those people are still keeping whatever vestiges of good image that Nigeria has still in the mind of the international community. But when you peel off that level of performance by Nigerians, and by no means are they the only ones. There are thousands of other Nigerians across the board, all over the world, who are doing wonderfully well. I only mention those three because, you know, they are operating at the highest level of the UN, of the ADB, which is a continental bank, and also of at the WTO, you know. But when you peel that off, then you ask yourself a question: what do we have? We have a country that is synonymous with endemic corruption, and that has been there for God knows how many years now. We have a country that, you know, is rapidly disintegrating, really, in terms of peace and security. You know, you have a country that is synonymous with, you know, complete lack of cohesion in government. You know, you have government functionaries at different levels speaking from different perspectives and speaking from different sides of the mouth. And we have a country that, you know, other countries are now warning people from going because it seems the agenda of the country now is being set by bandits and the hoodlums and whatever you have. So, you know, we have all the, I mean, if you want to start looking into what, you know, or the causes of image crisis in Nigeria, you have to go back, you know, into history. You have to go back into how corruption began. We have to go back into lack of enforcement of our rules and regulations. You have to go back into lack of. I think we suffer as a country. We suffer a dearth of vision, to put it straight away. So for me, when you take that as a takeoff point of the causes of image crisis in Nigeria, that is, if you take visionlessness as the takeoff point, then you can then begin to see different layers. So just let's say it began with total lack of vision by the leadership of this country.
Okay, but Professor, there's this impression that the global media only focus on the negative, you know, that everything the Western media projects just the negative. It's not as if it's, of course, you mentioned, you know, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is now the DG of WTO.
Yeah.
I mean, a whole lot of Nigerians, we have them in every sector, many of them making waves, you know, abroad. But the narrative has always been about the negative. What's your perception of this?
Moses, I think, to be honest with you, that is totally, I won't say wrong. That is a different point of view that I don't subscribe to at all. Look, let's take it from this angle. A few years ago, there was a program run by, I think, CBS in those days, 60 Minutes on CBS, they said, in which they showed that a foreigner could get a Nigerian passport within 1 hour or thereabout through corruption. There have been programs that people, foreign media that you say, CNN, BBC, whatever you have, Al Jazeera, they will go to places like Morocco and show the slums. That is what you are referring to, the slums in Nigeria and this and that. Let me ask you a question. You are a journalist. Which one is news? Man eats dog, dog eats man. You are a journalist. There is nothing extraordinary in dog biting man. But man biting dog is the news, right? So sensationalism is part of it. But when you go beyond that, the truth is, I've heard people complain that whenever foreign media come to Nigeria, they only go to show Morocco, they don't show Ikoyi. Why should I come from America or Britain or wherever and come and show the world how you should be living? Nigerians should be living decently. Nigerians should be living in decent accommodation in Ikoyi, in Victoria Land, in all the best places in Nigeria, because we've got the resources, both natural and human resources in this country. So why should anybody come and show the world how you should be living? It shouldn't be news that Nigerians are living in Ikoyi. So why should I come and start showing that? The news is that Nigerians are living in the filth. They're living in Morocco when they have no business living in Morocco. They're living in Najegunle when they have no business living in Najegunle.
So, but Professor, the impression that could create, especially, I mean, the minds of foreigners, is that maybe all Nigerians, you know, are living in these slums. And people have also argued that even the Western world, they also have slums.
Oh yes, there's no question about that. I lived among them for about 19 years of my life. They have slums, and they don't hide away their slums. But what they call slums in the Western world is not the slums that we deal with in Nigeria, basically. So, you know, the whole idea of, you know, the Western world only focuses on negative, I don't believe in that at all. You know, I mean, talk about Dr. Okonjo-Iweala becoming, you know, I mean, she's a magnificent human being. She's far, far well accomplished. But you still needed a robust international media to focus on achievement on different levels, not Nigerian media. Nigerian media did its own bit, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying that you need a far more robust, they actually propped that up. They showed the world what you could accomplish. The Western media today is showing the world what other Nigerians are accomplishing. Don't let's undermine that. But what I'm saying is that don't let us spin the narrative that when Western media comes on, you only focus on, no. Western media shows when Mark Zuckerberg came to Nigeria and was jogging, when the Facebook creator focused on the hub in Nigeria, how Nigeria has become technologically, important in the whole move about smartening the world. They've been focusing on that. They've been focusing, but they shouldn't shy away either when Nigeria is doing what it should not be doing. They shouldn't shy away when Nigerians are killing themselves. They shouldn't shy away when cattle, are rattling cities in 21st century. They shouldn't shy away from when the Minister for Defense could come out yesterday and say Nigerians should not be cowards. They should go and defend themselves. You ask yourself, by what? I'm a professor. Am I going to take a pen against somebody carrying an AK rifle? The Western media shouldn't shy away from that. When the truth is, sometimes the local media don't call them out. I haven't seen local media calling out the Minister for Defense since yesterday by saying, sir, that is wrong. You cannot say Nigerians are cowards, that they should go out and go and confront bandits. With what? This is a country in which people who are protecting cattle openly display AK-47. And meanwhile, regional security outfits like Amotekun are being denied the right to bear arms of certain level to protect themselves. So you're saying it is okay, as the governor of Bauchi said last week, you're saying in Nigeria it is okay for people to take gun, AK-47, to protect cattle, but for Nigerians not to take gun to protect their lives. What are we talking about? So, let's focus more on what the local media is not doing enough in Nigeria, and less on what international media is actually doing about our country.
Okay, well, you're talking about that. As Moses has said, I feel like, in a way, probably, maybe, truly, the Western media do pay a lot of attention to a lot of the negativity coming out of Nigeria. I mean, looking at a particular issue that happened in Texas pretty recently with a mayor who actually had to resign after telling people to, look for a way of eating up their own houses and stop waiting for the government. But then that particular story wasn't really given a lot of attention as you would think it would have been given if it was to be a West African country or African country. But then I want to move it to talking about immigration and migration of people around the world. This has been one of the major issues with Nigeria. People in the international media and the international community thinking that, oh, Nigerians want to leave their country, this and that. Is it a bad thing for we to think of migrating from Nigeria to another country? Is it a bad thing?
No, I don't think the problem is whether it is a bad thing or a good thing, to be honest with you. The question should be, what is pushing people out of this country? And as a country, are we doing enough to address that at the national level, at sub-regional level of ECOWAS and what have you, and at the continental level of African Union? And incidentally, I happen to have experience with some of these organizations myself, including the United Nations. Look, migration, I always joke that even in the Bible, no offense to any Muslims here, I always say the first asylum seeker I got to know about was Jesus Christ. When he was to be killed, he ran away from wherever he was. He ran to Egypt. He was an asylum seeker. Nobody was asking for his passport when he went there and this and that, because they needed to protect him anyway. So there's nothing wrong in human beings fleeing, political persecution or economic disaster and so on and so forth. That is not the issue. You have Westerners migrating. People migrate from Eastern Europe to Western Europe. In my years in the United Kingdom, you have people moving from Romania, Poland, and the former Eastern Bloc, in droves into the UK. The question is, what are the author countries, so to say, originating countries? What are they doing about the plight of the people? That is the issue. What about the organizations? Now, look at Nigeria, for instance. We have massive unemployment in Nigeria. We're battling with inflation that is approaching 17% already as of 2 days ago. We don't know where we are headed yet, basically. People leave universities with degrees. Even masters don't guarantee you anything nowadays, let alone a bachelor degree. You have PhD students in Nigeria driving, cabs in Washington. I've seen them several times. In London, they're driving everywhere I've been into the world, And the question is, what are we doing unto ourselves? When you see the image of just Nigerians, the image of Africans at large, Ethiopians, Eritreans, Somalis, and this and that, when you see them on international waters, on their way to Lampedusa, in Italy, your heart breaks. Because you're asking the question, how did we become like this? So you're talking about image, that is another image crisis. Because at the same time you are watching that, you're looking at leaders in Africa, not just Nigeria, who are spending billions of dollars on inanities, on total nonsenses. Let's call it out, what it is. You know, those level of monies and spending will have addressed the plight of the people. That is the problem. That is the issue. So migration itself, look, some people are going to migrate naturally. If I feel persecuted politically, as a Nigerian, I will run. It's normal for a short while, for some time, or sometimes even for a much longer period. But when you have now millions of economic migrants in the midst of plenty, because Nigeria, let's kid ourselves, Nigeria is blessed with resources. The problem is this level of kleptomanic, management that we have in the country. So as I said, it's not, I don't think migration is the problem, it's what we are doing as a people, as a country, as a sub-region, as a continent to fix the problem.
So, Professor, where do we go from here? I mean, we're talking about boosting Nigerians' image. I mean, I could recall that Dora Akuyili of blessed memory, did try, to rebuild, our image. But at this point in time, what should we be looking at?
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for referring to Dora Akuyili of blessed memory, what she tried to do. But with respect, I remember at that point in time there was a move, towards probably renaming Nigeria and this and that. And I said, rebranding is not renaming; they're different things. If you call Rose by another name, it doesn't spell it. It doesn't stop it from still smelling nice anyway. Rose is a rose. If you call Rose today ugly, Rose is still Rose. So you look at the content, not at the facade. The name is a facade, basically. You need to look beyond the name. And we have seen countries that have come from that nadir of existence, from that, brutal, image of suffocation, and they've moved up, not by changing their names, but by changing their ways. What we need to change in Nigeria is our ways. Number one, corruption. You ask yourself a question. In those days, and permit me to say this, in those days I used to say in my own theory about why corruption will never end easily in Nigeria. I said because corruption is the only thing that unites all our politicians mostly. Nigeria is the one country I don't find one politician accusing another one of corruption. Because you know what? It's a continuous, it's a converging point. That is bitter truth. I'm not saying all Nigerian politicians are corrupt. That is not what I'm saying. But in the public sector, even in the private sector today, corruption is fiendish. And we're not fighting it as we are supposed to be fighting it. You go to government, you come out, you are poor, people say you are stupid. That should have stolen money when you had the opportunity. And you look at them and say, and so if I steal money and you steal money, what are we doing to ourselves? That money is meant for the public. So that is important. Fix corruption. But you don't fix corruption by, poo-pooing the old movement and just saying, if you want to fix corruption, you start with serious criminalization. Corruption today has become a drastic problem in Nigeria, which requires a drastic solution. Number two, governance. Do we even understand, and I'm not referring to anybody here, as Nigerians, do we even understand what governance is all about? Because we just saw what happened in the US. The people, the Americans, were at the forefront, no matter what. And when people are saying, I say, you know what? You can say anything about America, but the true test of democracy was those institutions in America rising to the day and telling somebody they didn't like anymore and say, you know what, you've done your 4 years, now we want to go in another direction. And they spoke affirmatively at the end of the day. We need that kind of thing. We need those kind of institutions in Nigeria. Stop building personality, start building institutions. We haven't got that. What about the people? Who focuses on our people? Who focuses on Nigerians? Do you know how many kids are out there who don't have jobs? Look, I live in Lagos. I go around. I see Alimanjiri, the so-called Alimanjiri. My heart breaks. They are Nigerians. Nobody talks about them. They are victims. I don't care where they come from. They could be northerners or Haitians or anything. But those people you call Alimanjiri, they are kids, for goodness sake. They are Nigerians like you and I. Whether they are from Hausa land or they are from Yoruba Igbo land, they are Nigerian kids who should be in school and have no business begging on the street. Every time I see them, my heart misses. My heart cries out that what is the governance of this country doing about these kids? And you have so many like that. I've talked about graduates, people are being sacked every day. Today, the biggest battle Joe Biden is fighting, guess what? The president is saying, I want to pay my people $1.9 trillion. I want to push $1.9 trillion. Even legislators who are now fighting back that is too much, man. We don't need more than 6 months. You have the president saying, I want to give more money to my people. I want to see a Nigeria of that, where the leadership is going to put his head on the block, on the chopping block for the people. No, Nigerians have too far long put their necks on chopping blocks for their political leaders. That has to change.
Well, Professor, recently, currently, Nigeria ranks low in Corruption Perception Index, CPI. But I mean, when that rating came out, the presidency said it wasn't the portrayal of the fight against corruption.
Well, did the presidency, mind you, I didn't say president, did the presidency give us an alternative index to look at? It's a very simple question. Did the presidency give us an alternative index to look at? Because when Nigeria dropped a step a couple of years ago, the same presidency celebrated that, oh, we're doing better now. You see, it's become a kind of jaundiced narrative in which, global institutions that are concerned with poll, whether economic poll or whatsoever, when they do things that we like, we compliment them. When they do things we don't like, we pass the buck. The truth is the buck stops at the president's table as far as corruption is concerned in Nigeria. So let's stop passing the buck. Transparency International is an international organization, well recognized and well respected. Mind you, I'm not by any means saying the ranking is the best they could have done. That is for those who are concerned. But even the president, you didn't even go final. The president came out and said Nigerians caused. Nigerians were responsible for it. That Nigerians caused it. I laughed when I read that. So, but again, don't let's belittle the importance of the work we have to do in Nigeria as a people, basically, by probably getting reflecting to whatever the presidency is doing about it. Because, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, the country might as well just go on autopilot for now. I can't see any sense of direction in anything anymore. It seems everything is just going down the drain. We just hope for a better day.
Okay. Yes, we have spoken about how to get better as a country, but then some people would argue that it's the involvement of the international community in Nigeria, and not even in Nigeria alone, across Africa. I mean, we have seen the involvement of France in some Anglophone countries trying to sort of infiltrate their governance, and also in Nigeria and across Africa. Do we blame the international community for not allowing our own institutions to be independent? For example, looking at what is happening in Congo, because of the huge amount of resources there, you see different countries infiltrating the stability of the country. Do we also blame the international community for our own issues in Nigeria, for not allowing our own institutions to be independent?
Well, that is a very interesting question. Thanks for that. It's very interesting because it's a kind of question that we grew up on, either as students or as academics. In our consciousness, we were told that all our problems were caused by the colonial masters and this and that. It's quite interesting that even in 21st century, we are still blaming the international community for all our woes in Nigeria. When $20 billion went missing during the former petroleum, what was her name now? Alison Maduke's time, I wasn't aware that it was the international community that stole the money from Nigeria. The level of corruption we have in Nigeria, I'm not aware today that it's international community who's stealing all this money. When government makes promises and they don't fulfill, I'm not aware that is the international community that is doing that. When government sign contracts with foreign investors and they breach those contracts, I am not aware. So look, let us stop playing the ostrich in Nigeria. Let's stop burying our head in the sand. And let's stop blaming others for what is palpably our own personal problems. These are our problems. Mind you, I am not saying that at some level there cannot be international complicity. That is always there, one way or the other. But the very notion that some foreign country sits down somewhere and looking at Nigeria, looking at where to infiltrate, looking at how not to allow your institutions to work. Why would they allow it? Is this for them to allow? No, it's for you to make your institutions work. If the government, if the executives in Nigeria do not respect judgments of the court, that is not foreign country, the last time I checked. If courts give judgments and the government doesn't respect it. That is not foreign. You know, if, for instance, you summon military officials to appear before civilian court, and they just look the other way, that is not a foreign country. That is a problem of lack of democratic control of armed forces in Nigeria, of enforcement officers in Nigeria, of enforcement agencies in Nigeria. You know, so it's not a question of foreign countries sitting down and this and that. Yeah, you can refer to Congo and this and that, but that, you have to go back into history of DRC Congo. The crisis started when Congo was going through evolution, post-colonial evolution. You have Patrice Lumumba, you know, Shombe, and so many of them jostling for power. And Lumumba was thrust upon the power as a prime minister, which was believed not to have been liked by the Western powers, you know. So there was a fight for resources in Congo. So no, that's why I said, yeah, at a certain level, there is international complicity. That problem began in Congo then, you know, and I'm hoping that they begin to see that problem off now. But for goodness sake, it's not Britain that is, and you mentioned France and infiltration. Well, France had a policy of assimilation of the French colonies, unlike Britain that had association at independence, which is from distance I will associate. But for the French, they wanted to assimilate their former colonies. And hey, if anybody is saying the French have infiltrated the people of what is it called?
The Anglophone countries.
Anglophone countries. Well, I'm looking towards them being more corrupt than Nigeria. They're not more corrupt than Nigeria.
Well, Professor, there's this impression that the Western world is benefiting from the crisis in Congo.
Oh yeah, I just said that. There's no question about that. It's not only the Western world. Even some Congolese are benefiting from, look, colonialism. Some African rulers, traditional rulers, benefited from it. So there was complicity between our rulers who would sell Africans for a bottle of champagne, for a bottle of gin, to the colonialist. As the Yorubas would say, you know, bikule opani to de olepani. In other words, if you do not suffer dastardly or leakages from your home, you know, you won't have incursions from outside, so to say. So even some Congolese are benefiting from the crisis going on. Just as some Nigerians have alleged that the fight against Boko Haram in Nigeria, the insecurity has gone so far. I'm saying some Nigerians have alleged, mark my word, I'm a lawyer, I use my word very carefully. Nigerians have alleged that the fight is so long because some level of military or armed forces, you know, are profiting from it, that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Only yesterday, Buratai came out to tell the world that it will take 20 years.
Yes.
So the question is, what were you doing there? What was he doing there? Journalists should call him out. That's how. Then when you need to take 20 years, why didn't you say it to the president who appointed you? That's how. It will take 20 years to fix this problem. Unless we will give an institution 20 years to do it, we will be wasting our time. Why did he say that after he left the place? That shows you the hypocrisy of people in government. That tells you that there is a problem with our governance structure in this country. You know, so yeah, as I said, there is international complicity, but there is also domestic complicity. But once you fix your internal problems, you know what? Outsiders will have little space to birth.
Okay.
Well, let me go back to Brutai's statements saying it will take 20 years. And I mean, the former army chief, chief of staff, just spoke, and we can't just, we can't take that we have to take that with hook, line, and sinker, somewhat, because this is a stakeholder when it comes to secure president, even till now, because right now, trying to be a non-ambassador, non-carrier ambassador, basically. So you as a global security expert, what do you foresee if he's saying it will take 20 years, for us to nip insecurity in the bud?
Thank you very much, Moses. Let me put it this way. I did not dismiss that speech when I read it, or when I listened to it. Actually, I welcomed it at some level. If you understand security, insecurity is not something you fix overnight. So if, by that statement, the former chief of staff was referring to the kind of work we need to do, the kind of organic work we need to do as a country to be able to secure Nigeria on the long term, yes, is obviously very right in that. Because security is not guns and bullets. I've always said that. Let me just throw this in. Sometimes when you go to a place in Nigeria and you see a lot of people carrying guns, whether they are soldiers or they are police, you always feel like, oh, the place is secure. No. When people are carrying guns on the street, that is insecurity. It's the first symptom of insecurity. You know why? Security is felt, not seen. Security is mostly intelligence. So if you're carrying guns all around me, I don't feel secure. You know? So the truth is, you need a lot of intelligence work to be able to secure Nigeria. You need to go to the root causes of insecurity in the first place. Unemployment, you know, lack of transparency in government, corruption. When you put all these things together and you tackle them, then Nigeria will be better secure. So in that sense, to fight corruption could take even more than 20 years, could take 50 years. To reduce unemployment to a barest minimum could take 20 years. So if those are the indices that Buratai meant, is definitely right. But what I'm saying is that as a chief of staff, why didn't he say that when he was there? To say, look, Mr. President, our fight today will be meaningless unless our fight is coupled with all those things that might take 20 years for us to actually achieve. You know, so therefore, what he will have been saying to Mr. Buhari will have been, Mr. President, what we are doing today in terms of, we are only responding. So in the short term, Mr. President, we are going to win the war. We're going to win the battle, but we will not win the war. There's a difference between winning a battle and winning the war. Using gun against armed bandits, against kidnappers, we only win the battle. The war is a much longer fight. So you should have made that kind of level of distinction, but you know what? I wouldn't expect that probably at that level to be able to make that kind of distinction. So I'm just thinking out for him. Now, if that's what he meant, okay, yes. So at some level, he was right. My grouse is he should have said that when he was in government. That would have probably made giving the presidency a choice about what they were doing, who to appoint, and the kind of strategy they will adopt in making sure Nigeria was better secure.
Okay, so I want to go to this question. When a lot of people talk about this as a bad thing or a good thing, but I want to get your own perspective from it. It's about foreign aid. Do you think receiving foreign aid from China, the EU, the US, when it comes to foreign aid on probably polio vaccines, this vaccine, building this particular office, building our train stations, all of this, getting foreign aid from international community. Do you think it's part of the issues with our, image as a country?
Well, to be honest with you, not necessarily. Look, foreign aid are part of international governance structure, international governance system. It's part of international relations. It's like talking about debt. I don't think there's any country in the world that has more debt than the United States itself. It doesn't stop it from being the largest economy yet. Yeah. So, all those things, sometimes states even take aid when they don't need it. Just as a kind of goodwill gesture, interaction, rapport, creating rapprochement among states. It's normal to do that. What we should be careful is not taking what we call tied aids. Tied aids are aids that are given to you under certain conditions that may not augur well for your own existence, your own economy, or your own people. For instance, in those days, we used to have a lot of tied aids, in which one country will say we are giving Nigeria $100 million, but we are going to send 20 experts from our country, that's from the donor country, to come and help Nigeria into monitoring how to implement that. So of all the $100 million they will give to Nigeria, $80 or $70 million will go back to that same country in overhead payment to their consultants. And I think we began to readdress that. African Union began to readdress that about 2005 or thereabout. Because we used to also have such aid given to the African Union. Until the African Union said, enough is enough. We have African experts who could manage this. And they brought about 35 experts from the diaspora. I was one of them in those days to the African Union in 2005 to help implement different projects that were funded through what they call the EDF, European Development Fund, at that point in time. So there is nothing wrong with foreign aid. As I said, it's part of international governance, it's part of international relations, and sometimes countries take it when they don't seriously need it, just to promote amicability and good relationship with this thing. But we should be careful not to take aid that is going to make us contract away, our freedom. I mean, for instance, I know certain countries are in Africa today who target war-ravaged African countries. And they come to you and say, look, come and sign a lease, a mining lease with us for the next 50 years. We give you $100 million. Because you are vulnerable. You are coming from a war. You want to develop your infrastructure. You jump at $100 million, not looking that in the next 50 years, you have signed out $500 billion in the commonwealth of your people. That is what we need. So our government need to be smarter, need to be more careful, and need to be more wary when they take aid. And in any case, aid should only be taken when it's absolutely necessary.
Professor, you've worked with EU, European Union, and also African Union. The assertion out there is EU is toothless. I mean, comparing its efforts, put that side by side, that of the European Union, the involvement of the European Union in Europe, what's happening? What has been the role of EU in all these crises ravaging African countries?
Well, thank you. First, a point of correction. I only served as a consultant to the European Union. I didn't work for it, but I work for the African Union and I work for the United Nations. But your question is very spot on. To be honest with you, as an academic, my point position in those days was that African Union, is a conurbation of 54, I used to say, 54 vices of Africa. We used to have 54 countries in the African Union. So at that point in time, I thought African Union wasn't very serious about fixing African problems. And again, I have to be charitable to African Union here in the sense that it's also a question of resources at the end of the day. But beyond resources, you've hit something on the head that you may not realize. Is the evolution of African Union. You're comparing it with the European Union. When the European Union evolved in 1957 with 6 countries, it took to itself 6 countries that are democratic, that were ready to abide by certain principles. And then when, at that point in time, the European community became a bit stable, they began to develop principles of adherence, that if you want to join the European Union, you must subscribe to those principles. No coup, there must be free economy, there must be capital economy, there must be this, there must be that. So every country that till today, that wants to join the EU, just like in the past, that wanted to join the EU in the past, will have to fulfill all those criteria. You know why a country will want to fulfill those criteria? Because there are benefits for joining the European Union. For instance, the UK today has left the EU. So British nationals are now, they are treated now as non-European Union nationals, which means if a Brit wants to go and study in Germany now, you won't pay like a European, you pay like a Brit. British farmers will not get subsidies that European farmers get. So there are an abundance of benefits for any country that wants to join the EU. So if you foul any of the regulation, you can be suspended or expelled, because there are consequences for not complying. Now take African Union. Now, when the Organization of African Union, OAU, the predecessor of AU, was formed in '63, there was a need to bring in all African states or countries at the same time, because certain African countries were still going through colonialism or apartheid system. South Africa, then you have the Southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. They were still under colonial tutelage. You had Namibia, the British Southwest Africa, and so many other countries. So there was need for African countries all to come together at that point in time and say, we are OAU. We wanted to do this. However, when the OAU was dying and African Union was to evolve, the African continent missed a golden opportunity to go down the way of the EU. At that point in time, they should have said, now, we have experimented with OAU for over 40-something years. We haven't achieved serious results. Now, at that point in time, a few countries, 5 or 6 democratic countries, I will have put Malawi there, I will have put Botswana there, I will have put Ghana there, I will have put South Africa there. 5 or 6 countries, serious democratic countries, should have come out and said, we want to establish a new African Union. We are starting on our own. Anybody who wants to join must fulfill all these criteria. Then you will struggle to join. There will be no coup that you have all over the continent today. There will be no kleptomaniacism that you have all over the continent today. There will be no repression that you have today, because you have to adhere to those principles. But we miss that opportunity. And that is what made AU to be so incompetent, I'm sorry to say, today. Or to be very, very ineffective. You know why? Because most of the people you have at the highest level of AU are the same presidents, the same leaders who destroy their countries, who do not govern their countries very well. Let's be honest here. Let's call a spade, not an agricultural instrument. They're the same level of, so you don't have presidents, you don't have leaders who are performing badly in their country, go to AU and suddenly become, good guys. Or suddenly want to see an Africa where there's no corruption, African Union where there's no corruption, an African Union where they will lead from the front. No, because most countries in Africa are in a reactive mode. Nigeria is in a reactive mode. We are reacting to crisis. We're not leading. The government in Nigeria is reacting to crisis, basically. We allow bandits and hoodlums to dictate the agenda for the country. So you don't expect Nigeria to go to the AU and do anything different from what we are doing at home. But when you look at European Union, individual countries, you know, what they are doing, to go to the EU, you have to move even much higher. Ask yourself a question. Turkey. Turkey is a great country. It's a great economy, beautiful country, strong country. One of the most formidable allies of NATO in the North Atlantic Treaty, of 1949. Turkey is dying to be in the European Union today. They're not allowing Turkey because they say, you don't share our human rights value yet. Go and share our human rights value. You still have military incursion in your business. We don't want that. That tells you. So if Turkey joins, she will have to perform at that level. But look at Africa. So if you suspend, when they suspended Greece in 1969 during the colonialist regime from the European Union, Greece lost a lot of things. Can African Union suspend Nigeria today from African Union? Can African Union suspend South Africa today?
So what's the future for AU?
I think I've already spoken to the future. It's for AU, African Union, to go back to the drawing board, to ask yourself a question. What are the principles that African Union, I'm not talking about the Constitutive Treaty of African Union of 2004. That is not, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about principles that you just mentioned that are honored in breach. I worked on that principle on the Constitutive Act. I wrote on it. I am pretty familiar with it. I'm not talking about just principles that exist in the stratosphere. No, I'm talking about core principles of humanity. What do you want to govern your continent by as African Union? What do you want people to remember you by? You and I talk about European Union today. Look at what it took United Kingdom to even go out of a union that it voluntarily, you know why that? No, I'll tell you. The European Union wanted to send a signal that we are here for serious business. The fact that you are powerful or you join us doesn't mean that you can just walk in and walk out at leisure. Or that you're going to say, oh, you walk out but you want to still be assessing our 500 million people market. No, you cannot cherry pick.
Okay, well, time's really fast spent. But from the body language of the American President Joe Biden, the United States may not support countries with anti-gay laws, and Nigeria also one of these countries. Why some will feel this could be suppressive because yes, homosexuality not part of our culture, not part of our history. But the United States is frowning at these laws.
Well, it's a very sensitive one, Moses, and it's a very tricky one too. First, I'm not going to tell you what my personal belief is about homosexuality. I think everybody is entitled to their own opinion. But talking now as a Nigerian, and for better or for worse, as somebody probably will comment on public affairs. Number one, look, countries use their soft power to achieve whatever they want to achieve within their country or overseas. If Biden's government wants to use whatever it's able to use naturally, its economic power, its aid, its whatever, to say, I want Nigeria to think in this way. It is the right of every country to do that. Let's first of all clear that. Because they don't have to give us this. They don't have to give us that. If they say, look, I'm going to sanction Nigerian authority if you do not do this particular law, countries use sanctions as their part of power. That is normal. There's nothing wrong in that. Do I believe that any country has a right to dictate to another country what kind of law it must enact? The answer is an absolute no. So I don't believe for once it is up to United States or United Nations or any country or United Kingdom or any country for that matter to dictate to Nigerians what law they must. If Nigerians are okay with homosexuality, it should be the decision of Nigerians as a people, represented by their government. It is not for anybody to be dictating that to Nigeria. And I'll give you an example. We just saw what happened January 6th in the US, in which insurrectionists attacked the cradle of the American democracy. in which they actually tried to eliminate the VP of America and the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the House of Reps, Nancy Pelosi. Just about a week ago, we had the U.S. Congress, that is the Reps and the Senate combined, struggle to find 67 votes to convict a president who inspired, even accepted by McDonald himself. But the same country, U.S. today, is castigating Myanmar for the coup.
Well, Professor, we're running out of time, but maybe lastly, I would need you to comment on the abduction in Niger State. The governor has come out to say we want to negotiate with this bandit, we won't pay ransom. But I think it goes beyond the Niger State. The federal government is actively involved in this. So as a global security expert, what do you think the federal government or the Niger State government should do?
Number one, quickly, all 36 governors in Nigeria and the FCT should come together. The governors are the chief security officers of their state. Stop leaving it to the federal government. The federal government is just one agency in Nigeria. Let them take responsibility for the security of their people. That is number one. And there's no exception about what happened in Niger State, to be honest with you. The whole idea of people kidnapping and you have the IGP running there, you have minister running there, you have the president being chased all over the place, should stop. Let governors go and focus on their
Well, they have been
states.
coming together. We have
well,
the NGF.
They've been talking.
They've been
No,
meeting.
there's a difference. They've been talking. We should stop talking in Nigeria. We talk too much. Yeah, George, not war. Forget about war. Nobody wants civil war in this country. God forbid that we ever have it. But we should start acting. Talk is cheap. We talk too much. Let the governors stop talking. Let them start acting about securing the lives and property of their people. Whether it's in Niger State, in Kaduna, in Kano, in Ogun, in Oyo, anywhere, or in Edo, in Delta, anywhere in the country.
Well, federal might could be a stumbling block. People have been canvassing for.
It's because we are practicing.
For instance.
It is because we have been practicing skewed federalism. Nothing more than that.
Okay, Professor, we have to
lots
round
to
off
talk
this segment. Many thanks for coming. We so much appreciate. Many thanks. Professor ADEMOLA ABASS, Professor of International Law, author, global security expert. I can go on and on. Of course, former special advisor on overseas affairs and investments in Lagos State. And he has talked about boosting Nigerian image. We've touched on insecurity, foreign policy, diplomacy, Africa as a continent, and a whole lot he has been able to speak out this morning. So many thanks once again. Well, we're done with this segment, but we'll be back shortly for another part, the second part of our discussion segments on today's program. Stay with us.